Hey family, how you doing? Welcome again to another video. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And yeah, we're just going to keep right on going with all this stuff that, man, when I tell you we have so much stuff here, historical records and stuff that's just been here. And we're just doing our best to try to just to keep putting it out there. And Isaiah said, if you love me, feed my sheep. And what are you feeding them? You're feeding them the word. What else you feeding? You're giving them the truth. And that's what we're doing. The best of our ability is doing just that and staying obedient to what he's called us to do. And we're just going to continue to do that. And so in this video, I actually have like another thing that I wanted to talk about in this video, but I want to keep these videos kind of like short and concise as possible. And so what I'm gonna do is I have another video that will be coming up a little bit later on, and that will be the other stuff that we have. And man, it's a lot of stuff. It's so detailed, and I'm very excited about that one. So we'll be getting into that. That will be the next video. I'm not gonna tell you anything about it, but we are gonna get into this video. This one here, I came across this. Big shout out to my brother Nate for bringing this to my attention, and we're going to get into it. Okay. All right. So before we do that, though, I do want to bring your attention to something that we actually posted recently on our community tab. And if you're not familiar with how to get to the community tab, again, what you do is you go right to our main YouTube page, and which is, I'll show you how to do it, because believe it or not, you have a lot of people who still don't know how to get to it. So I'll show you real quick. This thing's going to play here. Okay. So all you do is when you get to our main YouTube page, which is right here, you just go home, video, playlist, and then you click on community, and there it is. Okay. So we got a post there. And then I want to get to this one right here because of the magnitude of stuff that we have. I can't make a video on everything. So what I will be doing is there'll be some things I'll just be sharing here on the community tab where you can, and I'll leave the links there so you could check it off for yourself and see everything in its fullest context. I'm not adding anything to it at all, as hopefully you know by now. And then there'll be some things that I'll just say, you know what, I need to make a video off of it. Okay. So yeah, so just to let you know, so make sure you keep an eye out on that. Excuse me. But okay, so this one here, I want to talk about this because I heard about this and I could not believe my ears. There's someone who is saying that the 144,000 that's referred to in scripture is referring to some slaves African slaves during transatlantic slave trade. And so I had to take great pause in that because I was like, I always thought the 144,000 was a future thing, and I know that full chapter, but I wanted to, because you've had Jehovah Witnesses in the past that said that only 144,000 are going to make it, and so you even hear Hebrews saying that. Then there's other, people who have taken that number and have ran with it. What we're going to do is we're going to keep that in context, and we're going to also look at this historical claim, this historical event in history that does involve 144,000. But I assure you, it has nothing at all to do with what the Bible is talking about. Okay. In fact, there was some errors there. So we're going to take a look at that. Okay. So I have it in front of me right here. And here we go. I'll just read it for you. And I said, historical and biblical study must be kept in its full context. And I continue. I said, a claim is being made that the 144,000 that is talked about in the book of Revelation has already happened. And apparently it happened during the transatlantic African slave trade. The Treaty of Utrecht was an agreement asiento between the British South Sea Company and Spain. In short, the British company agreed to send a total of 144,000 slaves to Spanish America over a period of 30 years. In fact, here's a free resource where you can read more about it. And there's the link. And I said, there are other sources I can point to. And yeah, there's a whole lot of things I can point to on this that I can point to, but those will take you to a fee-based service. Anyway, here's an excerpt from that page. Yeah. So there's some things that are just, a lot of this scholarly work, they keep them on these databases out here that you have to pay for to access these things. And so Not everything you're just going to find free, but there's some things you will. And fortunately, if it's a good resource, it will tell you where you can find that info and all that stuff. So anyways, this is just an excerpt from this page here. Okay, so I said this is what they said. The last and most notable asiento was that granted to the British South Sea Company in 1713 by a provision in the Treaty of Utrecht. This contract entitled the company to send 4,800 slaves to Spanish America annually for 30 years, and to send one ship, Navio de Permiso, each year to engage in general trade. The company found the enterprise unprofitable because war and other adverse conditions usually prevented importation to the American markets, while an annual tax to the Spanish crown of 34,000 pounds for the first 4,000 slaves had to be paid whether or not they were imported. Also, the legal trade was accompanied by illicit traffic that continually exasperated the Spanish-British relations, leading to the War of Jenkins' Ear in 1739. This disrupted the profitable British trade with peninsular Spain. Spain renewed the asiento at the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle in 1748, but 2 years later, the British relinquished their rights in exchange for a payment of 100,000 pounds from Spain. Between 1600 and 1750, an estimated 450,000 Africans were dispatched to Spanish America under the asiento system. Now, there's one thing I actually left out in what I wrote down here. I'll read what I wrote down there. I said, for starters, the total amount of slaves sent to South America wasn't 144,000, but 450,000, according to this account. And the other thing to keep in mind is, again, this was an arrangement based on this account, 4,800 slaves for 30 years. But as you just read there, it didn't last that long because of all this other mess that was happening. And so they said, nah, screw that. They worked out their whatever differences, and then it ended up being not 144,000 slaves, but 450,000. So first of all, so the 144,000 wasn't even, it never materialized. In fact, it far exceeded that. So, okay, so we're saying that that's 144,000 mentioned in the Bible. Okay, so but let's keep your thought on that. We're going to look at Revelation chapter 7, verse 1 through 4, okay? Because this is what was used as the foundation of that claim. So let's look at, we can't just jump right to 4. We got to read before that. Remember, we always talk about keep things in full context. All right, so let's read Revelation chapter 7, verse 1 through 4. And after these things, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living Elohim, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our Elohim in their foreheads. And I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. All right, so now let's get into it. So in order for the assertion that these 144,000 slaves are the ones mentioned in this passage, the following has to be proven. Number 1, it was a documented time of no wind. Keep in mind, slave ships needed wind for their sails. Number 2, it was a time of no natural damage to the earth, the sea, or the trees. Number 3, a clear definition of what exactly is the seal placed on, I said on, but in the foreheads. And then I wrote down here, question, since these slaves were of Judah, because again, you know, what we're saying and what scripture says is Judah was sent out to the 4 corners, right? Since these slaves were of Judah and we were sent into captivity because of our wickedness, why would a holy Elohim seal us? Something to think about. Number 4, as you read beyond verse 4, it talks about how 12,000 from each tribe was set apart. One will have to show factual historical record that these slavers methodically selected 12,000 from each biblical tribe. And then number 5, why would the Most High seal his people and then send them to be raped, beaten, tortured, and murdered? And then I just finished out with, always to the best of your ability, try to keep things in its most fullest context. And that's it. So we have to make sure that we're doing the utmost to prove all things. Just because you see a number of, 144,000 or, number 7 or whatever, it doesn't automatically mean one is, relates to the other. Sometimes it's just really pure coincidence. And that is, I know we say all the time, there's not such thing as coincidence, but in cases like this, there is no, to my knowledge, any evidence that shows that, that this was done out of the fact that they went in, because this aligns with Revelations chapter 7, verse 4. But as you can see, it clearly doesn't. There's a lot of things that one has to prove in order for that claim to be anywhere near to be true. But like I said, even that, from my understanding, Revelations chapter 7 is relating to something more so in the future, but if someone has anything different, I will be more than happy to hear that. But as far as that is related to what the scripture, this event, this asiento, as it relates to 144,000, there is no evidence for that at all. So make sure, family, don't ever take anybody's word on YouTube word for it. You got to make sure you check things out for yourself. But most of all, you must be filled with his spirit above all else. And with his spirit is the spirit of truth. And that's what we talk about. You can have all the knowledge. You think you have all the knowledge all you want, but unless you're filled with the spirit of truth, all it is knowledge. And then what happens is your sin nature will take over. And then what will end up happening is you'll use history as a weapon, and not as a way of being a student. So we can all learn from it. So just something to think about. I did want to cover that though. Okay. Let's go. We're going to be getting into that soon. We're going to actually be looking into the history, a lot closer of us who we claim to be Black Hebrew Israelites. And let's look at that. We're going to take a look at that in a very, very, very near future. We want to look at that history. Okay. We're going to dig deep in that. Okay. So yeah, stay tuned for that as well. All right. So now let's go ahead and get into the main part of this video. And let's go ahead and jump into that. Okay, so I came across this article by way of my brother, brother Nate. And like I said, again, thank you, brother, for forwarding this to me. Appreciate it. And it's quite interesting on many fronts because I later discovered that it was actually written by a Black Sephardic Jew. And and so here he is right here. I'll bring that up for you. And his name is I'm gonna try to say Yeholtanan Elazar Demota. Okay, I'm just gonna try to say that. I'll say his last name. I'll just say Demota from here on out. But this is him right here. He actually comes out of the Caribbean, but he can trace his lineage all through the Iberian coast and all of there. And we're gonna read a little bit about him. Okay, but this is him right here. And let's get to the next one here. And this is a little bit, I actually grabbed this off of his LinkedIn, but he has another page too that we'll show too that will give a little bit of more information. But he is a PhD, and it says this is the work he did with the Hague. And so he's not somebody that's just got a YouTube channel somewhere. He's not on our level. You know what I'm saying? He's out there a little bit. He's been out there. Okay, so I have been working as a researcher on the Global Cities Project under the supervision of John Nijman and Emily Shiver. The position entails archival research, historical and anthropological analysis, and international law. I am interested in revealing the contribution of the Sephardic Jewish community in the 17th century Dutch Republic on the debate on slavery and the Atlantic slave trade. Their material contributions were invaluable to the slave trading activities of the West Indies Company. Most important, they made a mark on the pan-European 17th century slave trade debate through their intellectual, legal, and religious conceptions. which influenced the thinking of international legal discussions of the time. Quite interesting background there. And I'll show you this other page too. Let me see. This is him as well. And his article is pretty short, so it's not going to be that long, family. All right, so this is his bio on the Asser Institute page, okay? And it says a PhD candidate at the TMC Asser Institute. He was born in Miami, Florida, and comes from a Caribbean Sephardi family via Dominican Republic, Caraco, Holland, and Iberia. He received his rabbinic and Hasnuth training initially under Hakam Yusuf, and then they list these individuals here. Okay, in 2009, he moved to the Dominican Republic and established the Sephardi Beth Midrash in Santo Domingo, and serving as the shohet of the community. Let's see. He goes on. I'll just skip down. He says he has spoken at numerous conferences around the world, including topics in population genetics, Jewish feminism, and Caribbean Sephardi history. He has a master's degree in Latin American and Sephardi studies. He was awarded the department distinction for the thesis, defense, and grade point average. And then they say he's also a jazz musician too. So he's done quite a bit there. And then if you want to read the rest, you can. I'll put the link in the chat. So not in the chat, sorry, in the description, so you can read the article. Actually, it's right in the community tab. So one of the posts that I did an excerpt of this article. It's in there, and I have the link there. But if I remember, I'll put the link in the chat too for you. Okay, I keep saying the chat in the description. Okay, so here we go. So this article he did, like I said, it was short. He did this back in 2019. It's called African Blacks and Mulattoes in the 17th Century Amsterdam Portuguese Jewish Community. All right, and let's go ahead and get into it. The 17th century Portuguese Jewish community in Amsterdam was comprised of members coming from Spain, Portugal, Italy, Turkey, Greece, France, Belgium, Morocco, and West Africa. Jose da Silva, Horta, and Peter Mark found records of Sephardic communities along the west coast of Africa. The archival records reveal the reality of slave trade. Portuguese conversos coerced Jewish converts to Catholicism had been slave trading since the 16th century between Lisbon, Sevilla, and the Atlantic Islands and West Africa. They even managed to control the asientos, contracts permitting, we just talked about that, right? Permitting the sale of slaves in the Spanish colonies between 1580 and 1640. The most prominent slave traders were from the families Rodriguez, and he names them all here, right? The members of these families established an international network based on national religious ties and kinship. When the Nakao, Hebrews of the Portuguese nation. Okay, that's one of the names. They were the Hebrews of the Portuguese nation. Members, when the Nakao members began arriving into the Netherlands, oftentimes they brought their African servants with them. Wait a minute now. So the Nakao, these are Hebrews of the Portuguese nation. They had African servants? What? Okay. Even though the practice of slavery was illegal in the Netherlands, Portuguese Jews called them servants. According to halakha, Jewish law, a slave owned by a Jew had to undergo a ritual at the beginning and at the end of his or her service. This ritual included circumcision for men and a ritual bath, men and women. This permitted Jews to have slaves for a period of 12 months, after which the slave became a full-fledged Jew. However, if the slave did not voluntarily embrace the Jewish faith, the owner was obligated to sell his or her slave to non-Jews. One way to circumvent this was by giving the slave to another Jew as a gift before the expiration of the 12 months. Inquisitorial archives in Torre do Tombo, Portugal, and the Canary Islands reveal this practice among the Sephardim. But what happened to those African blacks in Amsterdam that did not embrace the Jewish faith? Then it goes on. The communal records of the early Portuguese Jewish community in Amsterdam show that it was becoming a problem to deal with their African servants who did not become part of the community. In 1627, Hebrew year 5887, the Ma'amad Board of Trustees gathered at the house of Benjamin D. Israel in order to establish regulations on behalf of the community. The regulations provide evidence of the problem of the non-Jewish African blacks. And then I guess this is a quote here. It says, first, that no Negro or mulatto will be able to be buried in the cemetery except for those who had buried in it a Jewish mother. Let's stop there for a second. Notice that they make a distinction between these Nakao and Negroes or mulattoes. Okay, they weren't all called Negroes. Okay, and further, that none shall persuade any of the said Negroes and mulattoes, man or woman, or any other person who is not of the nation of Israel, to be made Jews. And it is particularly recommended to all men of the law that they not admit them, just as people who have a private mikveh, a ritual bath, not to immerse them without the permission of the gentlemen of the board of directors, for in this way results in only scandal and offense to God. He who does the contrary measures will be taken against him as disobedient. He gives the reference right here to that quote. Let's continue. This ordinance makes public that some Sephardic Jews had contact with dark-skinned Africans in Amsterdam. It also demonstrates that some men of the Nakao had children, mulatto. This is exactly what we were talking about in the previous video, and the video before that. Okay, some men of the Nakao had children, mulattoes, with women from the African community therein. In addition, it unveils that previous to this ruling, congregants were accustomed to proselytizing their African servants, especially those with their own ritual bath houses. The fact that provisions for the burial of slaves in the Jewish cemeteries was made reveals that Sephardic merchants in Amsterdam must have owned slaves therein. Since the use of dark-skinned African slaves was not customary on Dutch soil at the time, the Sephardim probably wanted to draw as little attention to themselves as possible. Lydia Hargoot attests to that fact that the Portuguese word for slave, escravo, disappeared from the Bethlehem records around the beginning of the 17th century, possibly to avoid controversy about the ambivalent status of slaves. As long as these slaves became Jews at the end of their service, the Nakao would be able to continue this practice without incurring any penalties from the city authorities. So they were all in it. They didn't call them slaves. They just call them servants. That's the way they got around it. The Great Council of Mechelen decided in the 16th century that enslaved peoples entering the Low Countries were to be freed, regardless of religion. This decision led to the development of the so-called free soil tradition in the Netherlands. The jurists, and they named the people here, and they give like the years, developed the free soil idea in the 16th century and 17th century. This notion was put to test time after time, especially when merchants would arrive to the United Provinces with enslaved peoples. In 1626, 4 Nakao merchants arrived to Amsterdam with black African slaves. The municipal records, and they name them here, okay, and it's a link to them, state that they were allowed to stay in the Netherlands for 3 months, after which they left to Bayonne with their property. It wasn't until 1654 that the municipality of Amsterdam made a provision in Chapter 39 of its laws, mirroring the provision in Article 36 of Antwerp. All right, let me see. Okay, and then I'll just read this here since we're pretty much at the end. Within the city and surroundings of Antwerp, all people are free and no slaves. And then number 2, it says the same holds true for all slaves that have come to the city and its surroundings, who are free and outside of power of their masters or wives, and as far as they try to keep them as slaves or have them serve against their will, may proclaim ad libertarium portray, and can have their masters or wives brought before court and can have them proclaimed free there. Quite interesting. Okay, the fact that slaves could bring their masters to court demonstrates that they had legal persona. Nonetheless, enslaved persons in the Netherlands had to appeal. Liberty was not granted automatically. Certainly, the nascent Portuguese Jewish community was aware of this law. This is perhaps why they established a communal ordinance in 1650 that no Negroes or mulattoes, notice they put a difference there, no Negroes or mulattoes will be circumcised nor immersed any longer. Evidently, the Sephardic community in Amsterdam did not want to be held accountable for violating the ius commune, law of the land. While this ruling protected the legal character of the Jewish community, it also provided a justification for them to keep perpetual servants within the community. Furthermore, this ruling became the model for the diaspora Nakao communities in the Caribbean. In that context, the lack of circumcision, male and immersion, male and female, for sub-Saharan slaves sealed their destiny as perpetual slave workers on the plantations. Quite fascinating. Quite fascinating. So today we learned in this video of they were also called these Hebrews of the Portuguese. They were also referred to as Nakao. Okay, and again, the claim is that these are our people. You know, be it Sephardics, Nakao. They're in either event. They are known as they're known as the Hebrews of the Portuguese. Not all the Portuguese were Hebrew, of course, right? But nonetheless, these were people who owned sub-Saharan African slaves. Okay, so again, the claim to be out here that says that the Nakao or the Sephardics are our people, it's more and more. It's not even. It's beyond. It's nowhere in the world that's the case. So anyway, so I hope you got something out of this very shorter video that we've done today. And like I said, we'll be doing another one very, very soon. That's going to provide some very interesting information about something else in regards to Portugal. And so I'm looking forward to that one. Well, family, thank you so much as always. More than welcome. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask them in the chat. Keep saying chat in the comment section. And regarding this particular information, if you're here to make a statement, you're not guaranteed that it's going to be heard. I'm getting quite a few of that. So, but anyway, family, thank you so much. You guys take care, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Take care now.